Summary of Swallow the Air by Tara June Winch. The story of Swallow the Air is told in a number of short stories called vignettes. In the first, the main character, May, thinks back on the time when her mother killed herself. Mom tells May and Billy, her bigger brother, to go fishing and come back to Auntie's house when it gets dark. The kids run to the water, and May sees a dead stingray there. They don't catch much, and when they get to Auntie's house, they see a police car outside. They run inside and find Auntie crying. She tells them their mother has died and will never come back. Next, May talks about Auntie's fall into gaming. She wins a raffle at the nearby grocery store one day and gets to take home tons of free food. Auntie is thrilled about the idea of giving May and Billy their first real Christmas turkey. In order to pay off all of their bills, she starts playing the lottery and then poker, which she can't stop doing. As Auntie's losses mount up, she also starts drinking too much. You can find May and Billy cloud busting at the beach in their free time. They look up at the sky, climb over the rocks, and sometimes catch small fish. Mum used to fry the fish in the pan that belonged to her own mother, which always made her think of the same story. As a child, Mom and her mother Alice lived in a sad government housing project. All the women in the building are shown the beautiful cookware that the white traveling seller is selling one day. Even though none of the women can afford any of it, they all laugh. But Alice is spellbound and agrees to pay for the pans over time. She makes friends with the seller, Samuel, over the course of 3 years as she saves up the money. When she finally pays for the pans, Samuel brings bags of meat and food with them. These pots now belong to Mom, and she cooks for her kids in them. May is now in the 8th grade. Her family is poor, and Auntie is still gaming, but she's happy because she won an art prize at school, and Billy has a great job carrying milk. May goes for a walk on the beach one day. She used to know this part of town well, but now it's popular with racist surfers who don't like people like her. May tries to hide when she sees a fight coming up. The guys see her, though, and follow her through the sand until they catch her. He draws a knife on May, calls her a dumb black bitch, rapes her, and then leaves. May gets a message from her long-absent father when she is 14. He says he's been living near Darwin and picking mangoes, and is sorry for not being able to talk to her for so long. May imagines her dad living in this beautiful world when she looks at the postcard's picture of a mango tree. She bears in mind that he taught her to fish when she was little. They are so clear in her mind that she feels like he never left. Billy's dad is not the same person. May's father was European, but Billy's father was Australian Aboriginal. Billy needed a lot of care because he had a heart problem, so he left his mother to join a band and later killed himself. Billy was sick as a baby and didn't learn to walk until he was older. Once he did, he hated to sit down, which made his mom think he was a fighter. Billy's aunt gives him a jar of booze when he turns 18. May is excited to go to the movies with Billy and a friend when he asks them to see Terminator. When they get home, though, they find Auntie's violent boyfriend Craig pressing her face against the hot stove. There is a punch in the chest between Billy and Craig, and Billy falls to the ground. May is afraid that his weak heart will give out as she watches him gasp for air. After a short time, Billy gets up and leaves the house, saying that he's never coming back. May knows all the places he likes to hide, but she can't find him. Soon after Billy leaves, May decides to go look for her dad, who she thinks can't be a worse provider than Auntie. She starts by going to a squat where one of her friends used to live. The people who live there welcome her and show her poppies, an opium-based drink that is very addicting. One day, May comes back from food shopping to find Billy in the squat with a group of heroin users. Even though he's glad to see her, she's afraid that he's been using drugs. That night, May goes to the bathroom and finds a girl who is overdosed dead. The others leave her body at a nearby train stop, and May gets up from the squat in shock. May gets on a truck with a nice man who is going to Darwin. They stop at a rodeo on the way, and May sees a very rough prize fight. She looks around at the guys watching the fight and sees that one of them is her father. Being around him in this way makes her remember both the good times and the times he abused her mother all the time. She chooses not to go to Darwin to look for him. May instead ends up in Sydney, where she lives on the streets. Joyce, an old Aboriginal woman, finds her one night and takes her home. Joyce is proud of her big family, even though her house is small, broken down, and in a bad area. May moves in with her daughter Justine, and Johnny, Justine's son. In the house, where the women smoke and tell stories all night, she loves how cozy it feels. Joyce tells May about her family and tells her to learn more about her own people. May works at a car wash in Sydney with an African refugee named while she lives there. They both don't like their racist and cruel boss, Mr. Tswilakis. Charlie and May don't have the same background, but they become good friends. May starts to see him as a father figure. The cops show up one day and send Charlie away. It's clear that Mr. Tswilakis turned in his own worker. In the evening, some neighborhood boys break into the chemical room to steal. May is fired because Mr. Tswilakis thinks she let them in. The cops are then sent to Joyce's house. Joyce's angry defense is the only reason May doesn't get jailed. Johnny, who is about May's age, is her best friend. They talk about their homelands, even though neither of them has been there, as they walk around the city in their spare time. Canoes take them around their islands in their dreams, and they dance to traditional music and sleep in huts during tropical storms. Johnny makes May think of her brother. May is jailed for the night because she was caught living with friends in a squat one day. In the morning, she wakes up and knows she has to leave this sad city. "You should leave to find your family in the country," she tells Johnny when she finds him. Johnny doesn't want to come because he thinks their daydreams were just thoughts. May gets angry and tells him he's a nobody with no goals. She then walks out of the house. May gets a ride to Lake Cowal from another trucker. The other driver tells her that the town she's looking for now has a mining property. When May gets there, she sees that their property is surrounded by a barbed wire fence. She remembers that her mom always told stories about this place, the land where their relatives lived. May meets an Aboriginal elder called Issy in town. Issy is in charge of protests against the mining business. She says that the Anishinaabe people who used to live here have a strong link to the land, but the mining company sees it as empty and hopeless. May remembers sitting around a fire with her mom telling stories while Billy took care of the fire in a memory. May thinks these were the best times of her life. May is told by Issy that she needs to walk along the river for 4 days to find the rest of her group. May walks along the river and tries not to think about what she might find as she eats fish. She finally gets to the road and starts walking toward Ubalong, the town where her family lives. May gets to a mission outside of Ubalong by hitchhiking. An old man sitting on his front porch hears her and asks her where the Gibsons are. He tells her that the people who live in the mission have turned to drinking because their lives are hopeless and the government is still trying to kill off us fellows. He tells her to talk to Betty, an old woman who knows more about the people that live in the area. There is only one Gibson family in Lake Cargiligo, and May's daughter, Jo, agrees to drive her there. May arrives at a clean white house and rings the doorbell. She finds her long-lost cousin, Percy Gibson, inside. He asks her to be honest and doesn't believe her when she says she's looking for stories. He then laughs at her. He tells her she's a lot like her grandmother, who left town looking for meaning and came back broke with a bunch of kids. As a child, Percy says, people weren't allowed to be Aboriginal, so the old stories don't exist anymore. Percy goes to play golf, but before she leaves, his wife Dottie feeds May. As May walks down the highway, she has an epiphany: this land is belonging, all of it for all of us. At first, her cousin's behavior breaks her heart. She feels more connected to her mother now that she cares about the world. May gets a ride out of town from another trucker. She stops at a grocery store to get some food and reads in the newspaper that Johnny was killed in a police chase before she leaves. He died with his dreams still intact because he never decided to try them. This makes her sad, but also happy. May thinks back to the jacaranda tree that used to be in the garden of her mom's house. Every year it bloomed for a short time, and Mom always said she would cut it down, but she really loved it. Mom finally killed herself, and her body was found under the jacaranda tree. May finds comfort in picturing her lying there. May thinks that her mom knows she's back in town when she gets there. She also knows she needs to stop running away and be with her family again. When May gets to Auntie's house, she finds her aunt crying at the kitchen table. Auntie tells her that they are being kicked out. What May is happy about, though, is that Billy is there and not high. May knows that one of Auntie's few hobbies is getting a new tablecloth for her kitchen table. When she was a kid, May always went to Auntie's house to celebrate one of these purchases. She tells Auntie that they should buy a new cover to make her feel better. Auntie is happy to agree. May goes outside and sees birds flying over the water and hears the start of a digger far away. She is not sure what could stop them from digging up Auntie's garden, which she thinks is digging up a mother's memory, digging up our people.
About the author. Tara June Winch was born in Wollongong in 1983. She dropped out of high school and hitchhiked through Australia and India before going back to Australia to go to the University of Wollongong. The David Unapan Award, which recognizes new Indigenous writers, went to her for her first book, Swallow the Air. Her second book, a collection of short stories called After the Carnage, came out in 2016. It was more than 10 years after her first book. Winch works for Australia's Indigenous Literacy Project and fights for the rights of Indigenous people when she's not writing. She lives with her husband and daughter in the country outside of Paris.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.